Long before South Park entered its 21 season and counting run on Comedy Central, before puppets policed the world and fought Kim Jong-il, and before dancing Mormons were singing on Broadway, Trey Parker and Matt Stone were just aspiring filmmakers and comedians with a dream of putting their crazy ideas out into the world. Watching their early works, one can see the first steps that would take them to fending everybody in their paths. These films are subversive, odd, and quite funny in their no-holds-barred humor. It's little surprise these two Coloradians found so much success later on. Parker's first student film at the University of Colorado was Giant Beavers of Southern Sri Lanka, which is just as weird as the title suggests, a spoof of Godzilla movies right down to the music. The low-grade quality, oddly enough, adds to its charms, and there's definitely something South Park-ish about the Beavers' design. Meanwhile, Man on Mars shows an astronaut being mocked as the clock ticks, and First Date presented a humorous parody of educational films with the narrator taking full advantage of the subject's stupidity. That anarchy humor definitely stands out in those early shorts, as simple as they are. American History was one of Parker's early attempts at stop-motion construction paper animation, with a Japanese friend narrating his version of American historical events. It's so absurdist, and yet it manages to work, and as crazy as this sounds, it actually got the attention of the Academy, who gave it a Student Academy Award. But what about those four boys of South Park? When did they first enter Trey Parker and Matt Stone's minds? For that, we have to look to Jesus versus Frosty. Quite a few of the trademarks of South Park showed up in this early short, including the depiction of Jesus as an action hero, and one of the boys even declaring,
"Yeah, but you know, I learned something today. Yeah, don't put the magic hat on Frosty."
And yes, one of them even says,
"Oh my God! Frosty killed Kenny!"
Wow, Kenny looks a lot fatter than I remember. Or is he just big-boned? I don't know. Nonetheless, there's something funny about what appears like something a child made spouting off naughty words. Parker and Stone's most ambitious project during their college years was Alfred Packer the Musical, later retitled Cannibal the Musical, a full-length feature film inspired by the true story of an infamous prospector who allegedly ate his companions. It's definitely a cheap student film, and yet Parker's songs and his sense of humor managed to liven the production up. Thanks to legitimately funny and catchy songs like It's a Spittle Day, Let's Build a Snowman, and That's All I'm Asking For, Parker more than handles the task of mounting a musical.
A home for us, that's all I'm asking for.
That's all we're asking for. That's all we're asking for. We're tired of being sick. We're sick of being poor. We've had a little luck, now we want a little more.
A girl I can love, a church, a ranch store.
Parker even shows his ability at writing romantic ballads with Polly Pry's number, This Side of Me. Watching Cannibal, Parker and Stone's later success with the Book of Mormon does not become particularly surprising. Cannibal managed to get some surprising mileage out of the running joke of Packer being emotionally attached to a horse with certain innuendos thrown in, and a gag of Japanese actors playing Native Americans is so absurd it works, as it makes fun of inappropriate castings often seen in westerns. I also have to mention the makeup, which is quite impressive for a low-budget student film, as the gore effects have the proper gruesomeness to them. It's also amusing seeing Matt Stone wearing Kyle's famous hat when portraying the character of Humphrey. Cannibal is what eventually started opening the doors for Trey Parker and Matt Stone to venture forth to Hollywood. One of their first assignments was given to them by Airplane director David Zucker, a comedic short called Your Studio and You, made for a company party after the beverage company Seagram acquired control of Universal Pictures. Done as a parody of educational films, it's hilarious thinking that Trey Parker and Matt Stone were given control of the studio lot, a bunch of celebrities, and allowed to make fun of them. One of the highlights comes from Steven Spielberg getting bored by the Jaws ride at Universal Studios.
Here it comes, the shark is coming!
That's right. Old and stupid.
Look out! All you back there is in the back of the tram!
That they were largely unprepared makes the final product all the more impressive, as they even seem to recognize what a wild golden ticket they've been given with this opportunity. Around this time, Fox executive Brian Radin gave them $1,000 to make a follow-up to Jesus vs. Frosty as an animated Christmas card to send to friends. Jesus vs. Santa had improved animation that's a lot closer to what South Park would ultimately look like. And yes, Kenny is properly named this time. And we even see Wendy as an extra. That Park and Stone had no idea this short would eventually lead to a television series, and it was intended as a one-time deal, makes its closeness to South Park even more impressive. Its religion versus consumerism message is rather pointed, and we also see the first use of the question, what would Brian Boitano do? That crude construction paper animation definitely adds to the humor of the short, and it's easy to understand why executives at Comedy Central thought this had potential as a primetime animated series. Jesus vs. Frosty is also important in internet history, as one of the first viral hits, when everyone was forced to use a slow dial-up connection and long before YouTube was a thing. However, before Cartman got an anal probe, Brian Radin had Trey Parker and Matt Stone put together a different sort of series pilot. Time Warped was a show intended to follow in the tradition of Cannibal the Musical, in that it would be a comedic and distorted take on history with musical numbers. The initial pilot told the story of Moses through Aaron's frustrated point of view, as Time Warped depicted Moses as not very bright. The songs are memorable and snappy, and Park and Stone managed to get a lot of humor out of this familiar story. Oddly, the cheapness of Cannibal continued here, and I don't know if the show would have lasted particularly long had it gone to series. Graydon seemed to think so too, and instead asked them to create another version of Time Warp for Fox Kids. That's right, the creators of South Park almost got a show on Fox Kids. However, watching this other pilot depicting a forbidden romance between two cave people, one can see Park and Stone being rather restrained in trying to make a show appropriate for a younger audience. It's a fairly slow-paced pilot, and the comedy just doesn't quite land, as it opts for typical caveman antics. I don't know if this would have sustained the intended child viewer's interest, although the possibility definitely existed of Time Warped getting better as it went along. Ultimately, Fox decided to not order Time Warped, and Trey Parker and Matt Stone went over to Comedy Central to create South Park. And the rest, as they say, is history. That journey from nobodies to hit show creators is a good lesson about trial and error until success strikes, and it's certainly inspirational.